Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Ryden. Listen to this. Today at 4 a.m., without any claims to our land and with no declaration of war, foreign forces attacked our beautiful republic in multiple areas and bombed us with their ships. This was an unheard of attack on our country, considered an act of treachery unprecedented in the history of civilized people. Sounds like just another page from your daily news feed, but that's how our guest today, Ari Kosiara starts his thriller Chronics 1, Viktor Koshark's Journal. Welcome, Ari, from Freeland, Michigan. How are you today?
I am doing pretty well,
Good.
and
Unlike
I'm
most,
glad that I am being invited onto here and able to do this interview.
absolutely. Unlike most science fiction, we were just talking about this a little while ago. This doesn't take place in the future, but in the past, almost 200 years ago, like 1848 or something. Why did you take that approach?
So the thing is that this galaxy is very different from our own currently, obviously, right?
Yeah.
But the Garazians and Promethean calendar to us would appear it is in the past, but actually it's in the future, and let me explain how,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Grazians and Prometheans are outer humans. Outer humans are humans that originate from a different planet. They have no genetic origins to Earth at all. Me and you, we would be humans that have genetic ancestral ties to the planet Earth because that's where humanity evolved and originate from,
Okay.
right?
All right.
The Prometheans and Grazians have their own set of history, have their own calendar and everything that's different than ours. So their year of 1838 or 1840, right, is 1840 AAW, whilst us, it would be like 2025 AD or 2026 AD. AAW stands for After Arachnid War.
Okay.
So I have a huge timeline already written down, right?
Yeah.
So while in this galaxy, and by the way, in the second novel, the Federation of Earth, which is the sci-fi nation that represents us, right, from Earth, does actually appear in the second novel that I am going to be writing. And you will figure out that we are actually in the year 2333, right?
Okay. Some
But for the
hundred years after
Garazians,
that.
yeah, so it's way in the future. For the Grazians Prometheans, it seems like they're in the past at first glance because they use an entirely different calendar.
Okay. Now, I should mention too that you just turned 18 last October, right?
Yes.
You're a genius or something. Okay. Well, and you've had this lifelong, 18 years, this lifelong love affair with world history and military history. How did that begin? Where did you get that interest?
Well, it began with my dad not supervising me and allowing me to play a ton of shooter games when I was young.
Okay. Well,
That's
let's not
that's
carry that off into real life.
yeah. Well, no, it's just I got very interested into war and guns and military guys, all that other stuff. And I just started researching it. And eventually I got really into history, military history. And then I also really like sci-fi settings too, as you could see.
Yeah.
So some of my biggest inspirations for my novel would be like Gears of War, Warhammer 40K, Star Wars is another one, the Halo series, if you know like any of the Halo games as well, Mass Effect trilogy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh,
So,
so basically, as a result of that, you studied and researched historical battles, and as a result of knowing all this, you've made these battles as realistic as possible.
well, yes, and then I also took many inspirations from also other established sci-fi settings as well and mixed them together.
Hmm.
So when I say realistic, now obviously not everything is going to be 100% realistic. You
Of course
can't
not. It's
really,
science fiction.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I try to make it immersive. So I'm not going to make it so realistic that it becomes boring, right? But I want it to be immersive so that way it's realistic enough that you could picture this happening and you can see yourself there in that position, in the setting.
Yeah.
That's what I like selling. That's what I like giving to my readers.
Okay. Now, we were talking about the timeline that they exist in is different from ours and so on. J.R.R. Tolkien created a whole elven language for Lord of the Rings. You seem to have done that for the Grosnian language. There's a passage in your book, and it's all in Grosnian. Is that
Yes.
your language that you've made up, or is that just gibberish?
So actually, the Garazian language is a mix mash of different languages from our world. The Garazians are inspired off of Eastern European and Northern European, so Slavs and Nordics. So
Mhm.
Russians, Polish, Ukrainian, Swedes, Finnish, Norwegian, right? And even more, right? And also Ukrainian too and other stuff.
Yeah.
And so many of the Garazian words you see is they're either in Polish or they're in Finnish or they're in Russian, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Any Slavic or Nordic language you can think of, you can apply that to the Garazians, and then you mix that all together, and that's what would make up the Garazian language and culture and other stuff.
Okay, so those words we see are actually words, whether they're Finnish,
Yes,
Swedish, or oh, okay, and it's just a
yes,
mixture.
or Polish or Russian or Ukrainian or Belarusian, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of Slavic
Do they
languages.
have, does each word have a meaning that's attached to it?
You could probably translate it. You could probably translate it, and it would have a meaning, yes.
Okay.
But the thing is, I'm not a native speaker. So to anyone who does or is fluent in that, do not expect it to be absolutely
Well,
fluent and
of course
perfect.
not. I
But
think you're just taking English and replacing the English words with words from, from
yes,
that's
yes. And then
clever.
yeah,
That's very clever. How long did it take you to develop the story and get it all into a book?
develop the story. Well, I started writing it initially back in eighth grade. So it was, I think I started writing it in the very beginning of November of 2021. And then it took me around 3 months to finish writing it initially. The initial manuscript was finished in like, I think it was like mid to late February, I finished it.
Okay.
And once I had that done, generally it was a few months later, we began the publishment process for it over the summer. And over many months of editing it, revising it, all that other stuff, and then getting artists and advertisements for it, we eventually got it published. I think it was in the summer of 2023 it was published.
And that's in Earth years.
Yeah, yes, in Earth years.
Oh, okay.
But
Just going to make sure we got that straight. Was this
yeah.
self-published?
Well, no, I did it with a publishment company.
Uh-huh.
So
Oh, good.
self-publishing would be very difficult for someone as my size when it comes to, being an author.
Uh-huh.
So we went with a publishment company, obviously, but I still hold my own book events and everything. I still write up all my novels and everything. I still do all that, and I still advertise it and I sell it to people in person and all that other stuff.
All right. Well, you seem to be ahead of your time because it looks like there are themes of honor, revenge, and the horrors of war. Is that about right? I mean, that seems like a lot.
Yes. Yes. And the thing is that in the very beginning of the novel, right, you're looking at it from Victor's perspective.
Right.
You kind of see it in a glorified way in the very beginning. Like this is some righteous crusade against the fascist Prometheans and their long-lived arch enemy. Yes, by the way, the Prometheans and Gracians hate each other so much that in the lore they refer to each other as the arch enemy. They
Okay.
have been fighting countless on and off conflicts with each other for over 10,000 years.
Good grief.
Yes. Like
Okay.
they do not like each other at all.
Apparently
So
not.
in the very beginning, you see it from a glorified perspective because he's a young Garazian soldier that is patriotic, and usually they are indoctrinated to absolutely love their country and to fight for their nation, right?
Sure.
And as the story progresses, that shader of patriotism and glorification begins to whittle away and turns into a vision of horror and disgust and anger as he witnesses his own comrades committing horrible atrocities, as
Right.
he witnesses officers of his own army executing their own men, including leading to the death of some of his own friends,
Hmm.
right? And it's like an eye opener where as the story progresses, he goes from patriotic and loving his nation and basically being glorified in this war to seeing it as absolute hell.
Yeah. Did you have the whole story worked out ahead of time, or did it start writing itself, sort of?
I like it when it writes itself
Yeah.
because, in my opinion, that flows more smoothly rather than just pre planning it.
Yeah.
Though
Um,
sometimes I will pre-plan certain parts of it, like I'll have certain events planned for the future, but I let it write itself to that event.
well, now,
If you get
who's your audience for this? Because I know early on in the book, and you've already referenced it, is that it gets pretty brutal and pretty graphic. Who's
Mhm.
your audience for this? It's certainly not 13-year-olds. Or maybe it is. I don't know.
I mean, if a 13-year-old wants to enjoy it, I wouldn't mind if they wanted to enjoy it. But typically my audience for this would be people who are into just sci-fi, war, other stuff. So
Um,
if you like Warhammer 40K, if you like Halo, if you like Star Wars, other stuff like that, or if you're just interested into settings of war, whether that be World War II, World War One, right?
mhm.
Or whether that be, some other fictional war setting, then I think you would absolutely love the setting of my novel that I have came up with.
Mhm. Now, clearly there are good guys and there are bad guys. From the looks of it, at least from Victor's vantage point, the Foundation of Life Party seems to be wearing the black hat. How do they figure into the story?
The Foundation of Life Party, they're a fascist party. They are not good guys at
Okay.
all. So they are the leading party of Promethea, which remember the Prometheans are rivals of the Garazians, right?
Hate them. Hate them.
Yes, they are literal space Nazis, and I'm not like saying that like lightly. Like their officers literally wear black trench coats, all that other stuff with the officer's cap and everything, and they do horrible human experiments on people with disabilities and other stuff because they deem them inferior. They
Um,
are not good people, and they are not to be glorified at all. The Goraznian government is also not that good either because it is a militant communist dictatorship that absolutely suppresses its people and will throw any dissident into a gulag or execute them for treasonous thoughts.
well, are there any
This,
good guys in this?
that's the funny part. There
Ah,
isn't. There isn't.
well, there's just shades of good and bad. I guess everybody, even bad guys think they're good. The bad guys
Exactly.
think they're
There
right.
can be good people inside of bad factions, but
Right.
those factions at the end of the day are evil. If you look at modern day politics and geopolitics, you cannot say that any country on the geopolitical spectrum anywhere is good or any of that their actions are totally 100% just. Even the United States, for example, has done many horrible things
Mhm.
throughout our history, even regardless, what we did with Native Americans and all that other stuff, but also just with things that the CIA has done across other countries. And then if you go look at Russia, Russia's obviously done many horrible things. If you go look at China, China's obviously done many horrible things. And literally, you go anywhere in the world, every government has been guilty of something bad, right?
Because it's
They
made up of
have done
humans.
something horrible.
Yeah, it's made up of humans.
Exactly. And that's the thing. None of the governments in my novel are supposed to be glorified. No matter how good or righteous you find their ideologies to be, at
Mhm.
the end of the day, it is the methods that they use and the harm that they bring that you should really look at. And you should see that every single nation is flawed, regardless of where they stand on the political spectrum and their ideologies.
Okay. Now, what's your writing process like? Do you write every day, or are you constantly working on this one particular theme, or do you write other stuff?
It really depends how I feel. Sometimes I can write every day for like a whole week. Other times I'll take like a small break and then I'll just like write a whole chapter in like the span of like a few hours because
Yeah.
it's it's very spontaneous.
Yeah.
So
What do you hope readers get out of this book?
what do I hope that they get out of this?
Just be
Well,
entertained or to see something deeper?
entertainment is obviously one thing. Any author wants their readers to be entertained.
Of
And
course.
I did try to make it so that it was entertaining with many action-filled moments. But also some of the deeper messaging is always you cannot blindly follow any group when it comes to whether it be ideology or politics or any of that stuff.
Mhm.
You cannot blindly follow a group because when you blindly follow a group, what that will lead to is that will lead to tyranny and that will lead to oppression and that will lead to death and suffering. We have seen that many times in history. And if you read the novel, you can see that happening with both the Prometheans and the Gorazians. And in my future novel that I plan to write, you will see that happen with not only the Federation of Earth, but you will see that happen with the other alien empires that are also going to be revealed later on.
Okay. Now, this story happens a long way from Earth, yet the characters are distinctly Russian. Why is that?
Oh, I just wanted to make the Grazian Slavic aesthetic. It was purely
Oh,
aesthetic,
okay.
and that was kind of it. The Grazians are just
No
supposed to
big
be,
message there.
yeah. No, the Grazians are just supposed to be basically be space Slavs,
Yeah.
space Soviets, right?
Mhm.
The Prometheans, on the other hand, so like while the Grazians are based off Northern and Eastern European, right? The Prometheans are Western and Central European. So not only will you see German within them, but you'll see Austrian, French, British, Irish, Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese,
All right.
and
Well,
many other ones too.
now, Chronix 1 is your debut novel, and it ends with three words, to be continued. So, when can we expect to see Chronix 2?
Well, as I've said before, I am writing it, and I can guarantee you this: I will be done with it in 2026. I will be done writing it in 2026.
Okay. Now, same
So,
characters, same setting, or you kind of branch off into something else?
well, how do I put this? You're in the perspective of a different protagonist in the second novel.
Oh, not Victor?
So, nope. Victor, he originally starts off as a Garazian soldier, as you guys all know, right?
Hmm.
But in the second novel, you're in the perspective of Hans Gunther. He is Promethea's top agent and assassin. He is referred to as the Guard Hunter because he was known for hunting down the elite Royal Guard super soldiers that Promethea had as a normal human and killing them and winning. And he would do that when they had gone rogue.
Okay.
And he is being sent after Victor to hunt him down.
Well, that's interesting because in the first one, you're telling it from the perspective of one of the good guys, the Groznyans, and now you're telling it from the
Yeah,
perspective of the bad guy. Well,
exactly.
Prometheans.
Well,
Well,
I mean, you could say good guy, bad guy, but at the end of the day, they're all shades of evil in
yeah,
one way or another.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
some are obviously lesser evil than others. I would rather live under the Garazians than the Prometheans
Yeah.
because the stuff the Prometheans do is absolutely horrendous.
Yeah, I think it
So,
sounds horrible. I think there's been some of that on Earth anyway. It'll
yeah,
be interesting with Chronix 2 to see what the Krushki happens next. That's what we really
yeah,
want to see. The book
yeah,
is Chronix 1. You like the way I got that in there?
yeah.
Chronix 1, Viktor Koshark's journal. It's available on Amazon. Where else can people get it?
I heard that you could order it from Barnes and Noble. You can also buy it directly from me whenever I'm holding a book event or whatever, right?
Great.
And if you buy it directly from me, I will always give you a signature if you want that.
Awesome.
So,
Well, if I'm
uh,
ever in Freeland, Michigan, I'll be sure to stop in and get one.
yeah.
Hey, thank you, Ari, so much for joining us. And with that, I say, for Goraznia.
Yeah, for Grazia. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Ari. And
Yeah.
thank you, folks, for spending a few minutes with us on the Global Book Network. I'm Paul Ryden. We'll see you next time.